Hello everyone, thank you for coming back. Quimby is here, ready for round 5 of our second season in Formula 1 2019. We are in the top 10 of the season points so far, hoping to work our way a little further up the board as we head out to Spain. So we hop into the garage here. We have decided, or I've decided at this point, as unfortunate as it is, I'm going to have to take a gearbox penalty at this race because I definitely don't want to take it at Monaco where it's literally impossible to pass. And we have another 2 development failures, so 2 out of our 3 fail. So that's not necessarily going to help us out. But, looking forward, we have our practice programs to complete, which is going to be easy. Play around with some of the setups and see what plays nicest for me here. Throughout practice, I ended up going with a pretty high downforce setup just to cover the real tight sweepers that the course has, but it really left me compromised on the straights. All told, I was gaining a little more in the corners than I was losing on the long main straight. But in the race, it's definitely going to be a compromised setup to run. So just taking a peek at kind of the health and life of our engine components. Obviously, for the ICE, MGU-H, and the turbocharger, Units 1 will no longer be in the pool of things I can select of. I'm only allowed to have 3 active of each component in the pool without taking any more penalties. So let's get ready to hop ahead towards qualifying.
You join us today at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya for what's bound to be a really hectic qualifying as the teams compete to set the best lap times. The competition is certainly heating up as we head into today's qualifying. Some impressive times showing up during the previous practice sessions. Anthony Davidson, do you think we can expect a similar level of skill to be showcased during today's qualifier?
Well, I certainly hope so. The competition here is extremely tight, and I think we might see some very close times today. Remember, practice isn't just about fastest lap times, though. It's about optimization, it's about ratifying your decisions. No one's going to be sweating small mistakes here and there, but in qualifying, that all changes. You need to nail that perfect lap or face the consequences, and believe me, that's a lot of pressure.
Alright, so here we are hopping out for the tail end of our second flying lap in Q1 with a little bit of improvement going on, sitting P10 in the lineup at the moment. We'll see what we can pick up in this last sector. I definitely had some bobbles and issues through that last chicane my first go-round. So it's going to allow us to pick up a lot of time in that final bit of the sector. And across the line, we are up into P6 at the moment at the end of Q1. So we're out once again. The track has definitely sped up quite a bit. We've dropped all the way to P17, but as you can see on that time delta, up almost 7/10, almost 3/4 of a second at this point as the checkered flag's been waved, so we just have to complete this flying lap. It's kind of up to trying to get a good qualifying position because we are taking that 5-place grid penalty. Well, here we go, crossing the line. And we'll see where we shake out. P9, so we managed to pretty easily make it in to Q2 where we will likely go out. Personally, my goal going into Q2 was try and get towards the top of Q2, but not into Q3 because having taken that 5-place grid penalty, I definitely wanted to have tire choice in the race. So here we are starting our first flying lap, and unfortunately right there on the right on the mediums, you've got Valtteri Bottas coming out of the pit lane and just hogging the line and putting us off course. So we miss our line, miss our apex, so we're going to have to abandon this lap thanks to him. So we'll turn our ERS all the way down, start recharging the battery, and have another go. Alright, so here we are out on the softs after making our next flying lap on the medium tires. Unfortunately, not a great time. We're sitting P15, so if we don't set a better time, we will be starting from the very back of the grid after a 5-place penalty. So we're on the softs, which we should gain a fair bit of time in the corners here. And you can see these very long, like sweeping high-speed corners was really what trended me towards the high downforce setup, especially that last corner onto the front straight. Is an area that the earlier you can get full throttle on it, the better speed you can carry down that main straight. But definitely hurt us in other areas. But there's the checkered flag. Qualifying is complete, so we're gonna, like I said, hope to set a good time, but not get into Q3 because I don't want to be locked into a tire and have to start far down the grid. So, best possible scenario would be to put up a time in the P11, but you can see we're about a second up on our medium tire lap there, which was not great, thanks to the lovely Mercedes just kind of creating dirty air. Even though we let him by us to set our next flying lap on those mediums, he just created a lot of dirty air, didn't have great downforce through some of the important corners. So here we are crossing the line, see what we've got. Pretty much a perfect qualifying result for me, a P11, so we're going to go ahead and take that gearbox penalty. I decided I wanted to run the qualifying on the old gearbox just because it wasn't to a point where it was going to jam or do anything like that, but it definitely wasn't going to make it through 2 sets of a qualifying in a race without issues, and I didn't want to have any issues during Monaco the next week. So you have to kind of plan ahead on that one, just like we did last season. But hopefully with the gearbox upgrades that we have, we shouldn't be taking any more gearbox penalties.
What does the Spanish Grand Prix have in store for us today, I wonder? I hope we see some tight wheel-to-wheel action down the main straight, circa Mansell and Senna way back in '91, or maybe we'll have a more strategic race here on a track where overtaking can be difficult. The Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya, a track that will certainly force the drivers to push themselves. It consists of a very impressive main straight going into turn 1. It's a straight that also offers a DRS zone, so it's likely to be a hot spot for overtakes. Anthony Davidson is here once again for today's Grand Prix. Let's talk about old-timer. There's a new gearbox in the back of that car, which means a grid penalty, and hopefully some excitement as they make their way through the field.
Fingers crossed that's one failure they won't have to worry about today at least. There's not much of a silver lining to starting down the field with a penalty, but I think they'll be able to make some of that back up over the course of the race.
Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Lewis Hamilton lines up on pole position, and Valtteri Bottas will line up alongside. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Leclerc, Verstappen, Sebastian Vettel, and Giovinazzi, Weber, Sainz, Gasly, and Devon Butler, Magnussen, Perez, Lando Norris, and Ricciardo, Russell, old-timer. They'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty. Lance Stroll and Kimi Raikkonen, Albon, and Romain Grosjean sits at the back of the grid. And now it's time to head down to the track.
Now that we've got some points on the board, let's continue this form and aim for another top 10 finish.
All right, so here we are comfortably on the grid right next to our teammate. It looks like we, with the free tire choice, are going to go ahead and go for the medium onto the hard tire strategy. Thought about underfueling the car to get it a little lighter, but I'd rather have the fuel to play around with. It is a little bit of a cloudy track, a little colder. We are going to move our pit window just a teeny bit forward just because it'll get us out of sync for an undercut on the other medium runners and just make sure that that we have a pretty clean pit lane to run through. But here we are on the grid. We've got 5 red lights up, and they hold us for a good long while. We have a bit of wheel spin on the start there. Is pretty traditional. You got Stroll getting by us. Albon is going to go around the outside. Kimi Raikkonen is going to stick his nose down the inside where it really doesn't belong. He manages to catch a little impact, and then he just runs straight into the back of us as we head through turns 2 and 3. So we have 2 warnings quick back-to-back for contact with Raikkonen. But really him putting his nose where it shouldn't be. He was not well alongside. I tried to give him room on the first corner, but he was 3 wide. Grosjean was diving up the inside as well. But the turn 2 incident, he just everybody checked up in front of me, and he just kind of ran into the back of me. So, but it's a game, and they don't have live stewards, so it's going to give me a warning. And there you have Stroll just kind of turning into me, as he should be moving to the outside for to straighten out his line for the exit of that corner, but he just decided to make that corner a little longer than it was. So unfortunately, not the greatest start for us here. We're down to P17. We've dropped a spot from our starting position as we get a little loose around the corners there, as the tires aren't quite fired up to temperature, and definitely trying to nurse them a little bit, but just getting a little eager on the throttle from time to time. So here we are coming through to complete our first lap of the race, and you can just see our straight line speed deficit. Even with our ERS turned way up, you see that group just kind of pulling very slightly away from us, even in the slipstream. So we are definitely, for passing and getting positions, we ended up really having to rely on DRS to keep us there. I didn't think it was going to be as big of a disadvantage as it ended up being through practice and testing. Through practice and testing, I was losing a couple of tenths in clean air, but in the race, I really struggled to hold pace with faster cars, and not even faster cars in front of me, just ones that had better straight line speed. And unfortunately, in this early stage of the race, while we do have a downforce and cornering advantage, there's just not a lot of good overtaking opportunities on this circuit. Really, the main straight is kind of the absolute best one to go for. So we are just kind of slotted in behind Ricardo here. We've got another teeny bit of a lap before we get a DRS enabled for our next time by, as we hit lap 3. Coming through this tough little chicane. This last right-hander was really our best opportunity to gain time. You can see how much we can close up using that extra downforce, able to get on the power early, but once we hit that long straight section, it's just tough to hang with these guys, which was a little disappointing at the start of the race. So luckily, we've decided to go with a one-stop strategy. We'll see how many other cars do it or go for a two-stop. But I think once we get DRS running, we'll have a much better shot at overtaking some of these guys and making up some positions on the track here. But Barcelona, it's an interesting track. Typically I run a higher nose downforce setup because I don't like a car that understeers. I prefer a slight bit of oversteer. But there are a couple corners on this course, turns 1 and 2 and the turns we just went through right there, where the car just gets extremely light in the rear end and just wants to snap oversteer. Even under straight acceleration, that quick change in direction, even as you're straightening it out, it just wants to, and especially this one, again, another one of the left-right, where you see how I would go a little wide because the car just coming over that hump, it just snaps. So I'm actually running a bit higher downforce in the rear than I am in the front, and I'm having to kind of nurse the brake pedal to get weight onto the front wheels to get the nose in. But you can see just how close we got right on the tail end of Ricardo there, but that straight line speed, he's got DRS open as well, so we are going to look to the outside and use our extra downforce to get the tires slowed down a little better. One plus side to running a higher downforce setup is your brake points can be a little bit later because you have a little more weight on the car, pinning it down to the track, so you have a little higher pressure before lockups. We're going to jump ahead a couple of laps, lap 6. So once we got clear of Ricardo, there's a little bit of a gap for us to run and catch up to, but you can see in front of us, Magnussen and Perez are kind of scrapping. So that's going to give us a chance to get a run on Grosjean here. So we're going to go to the outside of this hairpin as he covered off the inside very well. A little bit of a lockup as we have to really step on the brakes with Magnussen very slow to that corner, and Grosjean is still side by side with us, so we just got to try and stick our line around the inside in order to close the door and get finally around him. It took about 3 corners to complete that pass on Grosjean, but the little lockup from having to slow up for Magnussen definitely did not help us out. So we're going to hop on the power, get out of the next corners here and get a good run down the back straight and see if we can't make some ground up on Magnussen and Perez in front of us as well. So as I'm trying to run through these corners, I've got a huge downforce advantage through these sweepers on them, but they're taking up, the track double wide. There's nowhere for me to really slot through, even though I was able to significantly close up the gap. But you can just see how early and how soft I am on the brakes into some of these braking zones because they're having to step on the brakes so early, and it's just all I have to do to keep from crashing into the back of them. But I mean, they're a good 2/3 of a lap battling side by side already. And they finally slot back in 1-2 before we hit this very fast right-hander, crest that top of the hill. But we're going to pop DRS, see if we can't get a run. Not quite on Max. He has a little bit of a lockup, a little mistake. So maybe that'll give us a better chance to close up on him as we head to the final part of the sector here. Not advisable to run on that right side curbing through the long right-hander there, just because the car just wants to unsettle and it gets real loose if you try and get on throttle there. So it's a very dangerous one to try and ride, as you saw. To be pretty tentative getting through it. But we're right on the tail of K-Mag here, and you see us looking inside, outside, trying to find a lane to get by him. We managed to pick up a little bit of slipstream off of Perez to get alongside Magnussen there and slot right in and managed to take that position from him. So thankfully, in a straight raw, both DRS's open drag race that we were having, it was going to be pretty even, but because he looked to the inside to go around Perez, it gave me the opportunity to slot in and pick up Perez's slipstream, as Perez has a massive double lockup into the downhill hairpin here. But again, tight course, not enough to really allow me space to capitalize on a mistake. I had to be very, very tentative through that corner, but here we are right behind Perez. We're going to have another chance at DRS. This straight DRS is not quite enough to really get a good attack going. You've really got to have another car slowing them up in front. But it is a good spot to allow you to at least, keep pace with them. You see the long wait to get on the throttle through that long right-hander as we out-grip them through that corner pretty significantly, even with the dirty air in front of us. But here we go. Get the power down nice and early. Get a good run. Pick up slipstream. Open the DRS. And the racing points are darn quick car in a straight line. And see that my car actually, as I went to correct to go to the outside, a little bit of a snap that ran me out on the grass. Luckily, the car did not wreck straight into the wall. I was looking to the inside of Perez into that corner, but he just was slowly drifting. And as I made that decision to move back to the outside, I had a little bit of oversteer as well happen. Just snapped on me, which can happen if you make an aggressive move with the DRS open. Then you're putting yourself at risk of bringing that back end around. But we jump ahead a couple of laps up to lap 11 now. We managed to get past Perez and hold position, but not really clear him. So here he goes to attack us down the inside. That significant straight line speed advantage with the DRS open and the lower downforce setup. But we managed to outbrake him into turn one and hold that position off, luckily. So now the next up was our teammate George Russell. We've shuffled all the way to P3 as all the soft runners have already taken in for their first pits of the race. They'll be running a two-stop strategy. And I believe it is Georgia and Lando Norris is currently leading on the mediums. He's running a one-stop strategy. Let's hop ahead to lap 13, just another 2 laps ahead. We're going to dive in for our first pit stop of the day. We are going to get ready to fit the hard compound tires on that should take us to the end of the race. We're not going to have as good of pace at the end, I don't think. The hards tended to be a bit slower, but not enough to counter, the extra time loss of coming into the pits again. But here we are getting back up to speed, rejoining the track. I believe that is Giovinazzi right in front of us as we slot in. So we've got a couple of cars to kind of chase down again as Vettel went through. He was part of the two-stop group. I'm not really measuring the stint off of what Giovinazzi's doing in front there, but here we are jumping ahead a couple more laps. Lap 15, we've gotten our tires up to temperature, but Verstappen is out of the race. Unfortunately, mechanical failure was towards the top of the championship leaderboard there, so that is going to be something that Hamilton, I'm sure, is going to really enjoy. And you can see George Russell on the map ahead of us as well. He also came in for his pit stop, running the same one-stop strategy that we are. Vettel in front on the mediums, a little bit older. He is running a two-stop, so we are trying to chase him down and try and get a position up from him. The better we can run against the two-stoppers will make me feel a lot better about this one-stop strategy. But I believe Lando is still up ahead. We'll see what comes on when the last cars of the two-stoppers, when they make their pits, and see where they shake out in the field to see what the real results are going to be. Vettel is out of DRS range of our teammate, so we open DRS and kind of have to fight him down the straight because he's still we're still carrying a lot of drag. But into turn one, nice and clean. Make that move, and now it's time to try and chase down our teammate George Russell, who is running slightly fresher tires than us. I think he came in the next lap after we did, but both on the same compound on the hards, and it's just going to be a matter of managing the hards and trying to stay on good pace throughout the race to counteract these the two stoppers. We just need to make it run with good lap times so we can put ourselves up for a pretty good position. All right, so here we are, jump a couple more laps ahead. Lap 20 now. We've gotten onto the back of George Russell, but also catching us right behind Lewis Hamilton on a two-stopper. Went with an interesting soft, medium, hard strategy. He must have just not had any more mediums to run, is what my guess is. But he's running on some very fresh hards, and that Mercedes has got some serious pace. So you can see he's joined the fight with myself and George Russell. And Lewis Hamilton is the first kind of litmus test that we're facing as far as the two-stop strategy goes. He was one of the two-stoppers, and he has managed to close up on us. So the two-stop strategy does appear to be working pretty decently. Still have good race pace. Obviously, it's going to take that quicker car in order to make that really work. But here we are, DRS open, moving to the inside of our teammate, and Lewis is also closing in on George, but not quite close enough to make a true attack on him. But we managed to get by, and now our attempt is to try and run away from George Russell as fast as we can, see if we can't clear that 1 second DRS zone, and see if he can't hold up Lewis Hamilton just a little bit. I mean, we've already picked up a half second through the first sector after making that pass. You can see also Valtteri Bottas is also behind Lewis Hamilton. So both of the Mercedes running the two-stop in front. So we just have Lando Norris in front of us in P2. P1 was another one of the one-stoppers towards the back of the grid who was running a pretty long stint. I believe... Oh no, it is a two-stopper. If you look at the mini-map, the red dot, so I believe that is Leclerc, who is on a two-stop strategy. So Norris will inherit P1 once Leclerc dives in, so it's really going to be a matter of if the two stoppers can chase him down. As the two stoppers of Hamilton's definitely chased me down so far. It's the hard tires. Got about another 11 laps left to go in this race. We're still running good lap times, set another personal best, but George Russell still within DRS range of us. Not enough to attack and make a pass, but definitely still helping to keep Lewis pretty close on us. And by extension, though, Russell having DRS on us allows him to stay in front of Hamilton a little bit longer. But as you can see, we're a little bit slower through that first sector. You can see a little bit of a train starting to catch up to this group. We've got Hamilton, and then you've got Bottas, and then you've got, I believe it's Lucas, and then Vettel behind. So it's starting to get interesting. So for the moment, it's the way it's shaping up at the tail end of this race here. We're starting to head into the final stages. Everybody's done with their pit stops at this point, essentially. So we got to try and defend as well as we can. unfortunately, not having great straight line speed means we're at a huge disadvantage in the best overtaking zone on the course. So hopefully we can keep cars behind us, harvest enough ERS, and save some deployment for the main straight. But you can see they're still right up on me. Not quite enough to get by, but running essentially almost nose to tail now. We are 5 cars long. And there's another, you've got Giovinazzi and Lucas behind. So we jump ahead, lap 25. Lando Norris has inherited the lead, and he's a fair distance off ahead of us. What do we got? A 9-second gap. But Lewis Hamilton has got the easy overspeed on us, so we're just going to go ahead and slot into the slipstream, try and pick up a little bit of it so George Russell doesn't attack us too much. And now my strategy here was just try and utilize DRS to hang with Hamilton as much as I could for as long as I could, and defend positions. Right now we're still on a podium. We're still P3 in the race, so it's just a matter of... I mean, George Russell isn't going to really get by us, I don't think. I think we're just faster than him. But if the other cars start to get through him, it's going to put us into danger, as they're going to have DRS, and now it's quite a train here. So harvesting energy where I can through the slow sector. I'm still within the 1 second there, so that's going to allow me to claw back a little bit of the time gap heading into this final technical section of the track, which hopefully is where my car has a bit more of an advantage. So I'm able to basically hold pretty steady with Lewis through this section. But it is really going to come down to staying in DRS range down that main front straight is going to be my best way to defend my position against all these cars that are stacking up behind me. And the podium is starting to look very much in danger at this point. You can see the DRS flip open as we catch that. Definitely not an opportunity that we're going to make a pass on Lewis, but you can see just how much gap we're able to close up on him down that main straight. And hopefully if Lewis can keep running a very good pace and I can stay in DRS range, then we can run away from the group. But you see the damage warning flip up orange on that rear wing. My DRS is stuck closed. So my whole strategy now of trying to utilize the DRS to run off of Hamilton and compensate for our straight line disadvantage, right out the window. So Hamilton runs away from us. We jump to lap 31. You can see Hamilton has run about 2 seconds off. Bottas and Leclerc, really easy pass of us on the main straight. I mean, they just had tremendous overspeed. Lost 2 positions down the straight. You can see George Russell has fallen back behind Lucas Weber, but still just in front of Antonio Giovinazzi there in the Red Bull. But we are down to P5 with 2 laps to go. No DRS to help us. So it's just going to become a system of trying to manage the gap to Lucas behind us. We have a couple of seconds of a gap behind. He is not going to have DRS on us, but it's, again, our main strategy of using DRS to hang with Lewis Hamilton just went right out the window with that random failure. So now it's just trying to salvage the best finishing position I can. Obviously, we made a good comeback, started P16, so really anything in the points is a solid finish, but we had high hopes running an alternate strategy around this track, and especially with Lando Norris still leading the group on his 2-stop strategy. He only started a couple positions ahead, but you see that group slow behind, yellow flags. Lucas Weber is out of the session, and it managed to slow up the group of Russell and Giovinazzi for just long enough for him to pull off the track. So now we've opened up a pretty substantial time gap that we just have to manage the last couple of laps of this race. So we hop ahead, lap 32 of 33, starting our final lap. Giovinazzi, you see, has gotten through our teammate, through George Russell. We managed to stay within 2 seconds of the cars in front of us, as Giovinazzi's 4.5 seconds behind. But the last few laps of this race, you can see even now, not really letting the engine rev out. Very early on the shifter, just kind of hitting the shifter as soon as I start to see lights come up. Try and save the car from over revving too much, except for that corner, which I had to downshift just to actually get the car to turn in. The fronts were getting so worn that the nose didn't want to come around, so downshifting really helped kind of help the car rotate a little more. But definitely trying to save the engine as much as we can. We're not going to chase down this group in front of us, and we have a pretty healthy gap to the cars behind us. But you can hear that short shifting taking place down the final long straight here. And just kind of nurse the car into the end and secure this P5 finish on the season, which is a good spot for us to be. Can't complain. Starting 16th, managing to come through P5. Didn't really have great race pace as a result of the high downforce setup. And turn the ERS completely off and cross the line and finish up this race. And an unlikely winner, Lando Norris, is the first one to cross the line, running a two-stop strategy. He started 13th, managed to get clear of that little train that I got stuck in the first 5 laps of the race. So he was able to really open up a good amount of gap.
What do you think it was, Ant, that gave them the edge over the competition today?
I think a large part of the result comes down to temperament. They were able to keep their heads when everyone around them was losing theirs, and that's allowed them to get the best out of the car, to maximise the strategy, and to stay out of trouble.
Our drivers are making their way out for the podium celebrations, and it's going to be McLaren picking up the winner's trophy. Congratulations to the entire team for that fantastic performance.
I'd have to double check, but I think this might be the first time one of the non-top 3 teams has actually taken a race win.
So let's review the updated drivers' standings. Lewis Hamilton takes the lead of the Drivers' Championship. After an incredible day of racing, who was your driver of the day, Ant?
It's got to be Lando Norris, hasn't it? Smooth, confident and assured. I've got no doubt that he and his team are going to be over the moon with his performance today.
It's time to see how things are shaping up in the Constructors' Championship. Mercedes continue to extend their lead. There was also a strong showing from the McLaren team today as they make their way up the standings. Well, Ant, an end to another fantastic weekend of racing. Thanks to everyone who joined us, and we'll see you for the next one.
You can see in the race rundown a good mix of one-stoppers and two-stoppers allowed a lot of the back of the grid teams to really to catch up a lot. But here we are. We've managed to kind of move up 8th position in the Drivers' Championship here. Our goal is best of the rest, so finishing only behind Ferrari, Mercedes, and Red Bull there. We are leading one of the Red Bulls, but we still have Sergio Perez from his podium and Lucas Weber also in front of us. We have dropped down thanks to McLaren's great race there to P6 in the Constructors, though.
Good day today. Let's have your take on it. You really cut your way through the field today. What was your strategy?
Oh, the car is nimble. It's pretty light, and it can just, run rings around. I mean, it's great cornering. That's really what got me in my positions, not straight line speed today.
It's safe to say you're smashing everyone's expectations, isn't it?
Yeah, but F1 is a team sport, and everybody puts in a lot of effort.
You had a few bumps and scrapes today. Who would you say is at fault?
I had the line. Kimi was in the wrong there. He's the one who stuck his nose down. Turn 1 instant's going to happen, but coming turn 2, turn 3, he just ran into the back of me. But here we are back in the garage. So we've got a healthy amount of a resource development points to play around with. So we'll see what we can get out of that there. We have one more race remaining to get another bundle of team goal completed, which is just for practice programs. Unfortunately, we're having to repurchase two upgrades, about 700 points just thrown right away on buying upgrades that we've already purchased before because of the development failures. But such is how it goes. We'd love to be making more movements up, but we are getting very close to getting our chassis team off the bottom of the grid, and I think that'll be the real big stepping stone of getting our car, bridging that gap from top of the midfield and best of the rest to start running down those top 3 teams. So we're going to go ahead and take another chassis development, the cable assembly one, another minor upgrade because we can afford a minor but no majors. But that should give us now, hopefully, 3 developments coming live for Monaco next week. And of course, we've got a fresh new gearbox in there, and you can see the still pretty big gulf between Ferrari and us. But hopefully those 3 upgrades will really close that gap up a considerable amount. But after just one race run, 32 laps, only 9% wear. So hopefully, fingers crossed, this new gearbox that's started from day one with the upgrades that we've had installed will survive 6 races, and we won't be taking any more grid penalties on gearbox issues. But it is on to Monaco for the next race of the season, race number 6. Always a fun race, always a challenge and a stressful race with all those tight, close barriers. Was one of our best early season finishes last season. Let's see if we can back it up and have another great result there. Well, thank you for joining me, guys. I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.